Now, Noosa Heads in Queensland, Australia is a series of world-class right-hand point breaks. The area has been drawing surfers from around the country and around the globe for decades and is now designated as a World Surfing Reserve, ensuring the place stays as perfect and pristine as it is today for future generations. So in this video, we're going to find out what it's like to actually surf. So the best season here, I mean, you can get fun waves basically at any time of year, but generally you want cyclone season, which generally happens between January and April. This is when you get those cyclone swells that start up in the Coral Sea by Fiji and just send swell down to the east coast of Australia. That's when the Noosa points are really going to light up. And these big swells can happen at other times of year as well. During winter, for example, you can have these big east coast lows that, you know, do the same thing and light up all of the points across Noosa. So generally you want cyclone season, but there can be some pretty sick waves in winter as well on the right swells. Generally you want to avoid that sort of springtime, September, October, probably not the greatest time for surfing in Noosa. Throughout the national park at Noosa, there's actually several different waves. In this first section here, you've got First Point, which is really good for loggers. Pretty mellow, easy waves, spinning little rights off the rocks. Obviously the shape of the wave changes depending on the sand, but generally it's really user-friendly. It's kind of run by longboarders most of the time. Next, you head up to Little Cove, which is another sort of similar thing, you know, mellow right-hander. And then you get up to the entrance of the national park where this whole stretch here on the right swell, it can become one wave. So you've got Boiling Pot at the top, which can be this like slabby, hollow, sort of behind the rocket snapper type wave. And then it runs through into nationals. On smaller days, all of these waves are kind of separate little right points. But on those big cyclone swells or east coast lows, they all join up and turn into one wave, which is just a ridiculously long wave. You know, you can, in theory, ride a wave from Boiling Pot at the top all the way through down to First Point. I've had one before where I took off sort of on the edge of Pot, and yeah, just as I was getting to First Point, the wave just kind of fizzled out a little bit and I couldn't quite make it to First Point, but I was super close. And you know, when you've got a wave that long, by the end, you're not even doing turns, you're just sort of nursing it through and like wrapping it back and just kind of standing there for a while just to like let your legs recover. But if you can get one of those off the crowd, it's a flipping incredible wave. As you go round further into the national park, you've got Tea Tree, which is probably the jewel in the crown. It's probably one of my favorite waves in the world, let alone Noosa. It's a really, really fun wave, just like a pristine double up right. It's so perfect. It's almost like when I go there, I always think that this place has almost been designed as if it's meant to be ridden, you know, the waves are just that perfect. When it's good, you've kind of got a slabby section at the top that's really hollow and heavy, can be backwashy and close to the rocks, so it can be pretty sketchy. And then it generally like fattens out, and as it sort of bends in, it gets cleaner, starts to double up, and you just got like this perfect little double up wall. And you know, it's one of those waves where you can like take off on a 1 foot whitewater and it just grow and grow down the line, and by the end you're on like a head high perfect wall. It's so sick. And then eventually at the top, if you walk all the way around through the national park, you get to Granites, which is the most exposed of the points. It's a really long walk and it's not as good as some of the other points. You know, it generally doesn't seem to be as steep. It's generally a bit of a mellower wave. And while you'd like to think that such a far walk would put off people from going and it would be a bit less crowded, it's always quite surprising how many people are actually up there as well. So we were camping on our trip this time, and thank you so much to Travelers Autobarn for making that happen. We rented the Cougar camper and it was just perfect for our trip. It just had everything we need, you know, it had a sick bedding area that could transform really quick and really easily into like a seating area. We had a little sink, cooking space, loads of storage in the overhead and kind of under the bed as well. Fridge, cooking, camping equipment. Yeah, just everything we needed to make our trip really easy. There's some cheaper, smaller ones as well. So if you're doing more of a budget trip, it's a really good option. And they've got fleets of campers in Australia, New Zealand, California, and even Japan. So I'll leave the link in the description where you can check them out. But for now, let's get back to the video. So even though we had our van with basically everything we needed, in and around Noosa, you're not really allowed to just free camp, and they have rangers that do enforce this. So just for peace of mind, me and my partner, we just stuck to like the normal campsites, and they were a little bit expensive. You know, our trip coincided with the Easter holidays, so everything was really expensive, and we were paying sort of between 50 and 100 Aussie dollars per night. So it's not cheap, but it's not outrageous. Even though they were expensive, most of the campsites in and around Noosa were really good. You know, a lot of them had pools, Wi-Fi, and just nice facilities. So I'll leave the links to them down in the description, you know, if you're looking for good campsites in the area. While the waves themselves are absolutely incredible, you know, such perfect right-hand points, it's incredibly crowded, and it's been crowded beyond belief for decades. So yeah, catching a wave here is a lot easier said than done. If you don't like crowds, it's definitely not the place for you. Bar the Gold Coast and maybe Trestles, it's probably one of the most crowded surfing setups in the world. So sometimes you just rock up and you're just like, oh my God, you can't believe like the volume of people surfing. You know, that whole first stretch from pot down to first point, there can be 200 people out if it's good. Tea Tree, you know, there can be 50 to 100 people out there as well. And then Granite's kind of the same as well at the top. So all of them super, super crowded. There's usually like locals that are like dominating, not really in like an aggressive way, but like they're just getting their waves, you know, all the top locals, as is the case anywhere. They're just kind of taking whatever they want, getting the waves from the top, which is, I guess, yeah, how it should be. And then kind of for everyone else, it's just kind of this free-for-all battle where like, it seems like all the normal surfing rules and etiquette like go out the window a little bit, because you're just constantly like paddling up to get as far up the point. So, you know, you're kind of like snaking everyone, but everyone's doing that to each other. So even though it's really, really hectic, it does kind of work, but you do have to be in that mindset of like constantly battling to get waves. You know, you've constantly got to be getting up the point to make ground. You've got to be sort of backing people up. You know, if there's like 2 or 3 people on your inside paddling for a wave, you've got to kind of still almost just half paddle for the wave just in case they fuck it up. And quite often, you know, with these like sucky little sandbar rights, the person who's deepest will be too deep, they'll fall, the next person might nosedive, then the other person on the inside of you will be like looking a bit unsure, might not catch it. So you've just always got to be ready to like spin and go and like poach off these little waves. You know, you can sit at parts of it where it's a bit fast and sort of tee off those sections. That's kind of what I try and do. I'm never really like competing at the very top for the best ones. I'm just sort of hunting around like, I guess like a little vulture feeding off the scraps. So yeah, if you're sat further down the point, you're kind of just sat there waiting for people to fall, just like waiting, going, come on, fall, 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 fall. And then they do fall and you're like, fuck, go, 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 go. And you're just being in that mindset like all day of like wanting people to fall off and poaching is exhausting. It's like a whole other element in itself to surfing. And yeah, I mean, it's not really one that I'm that fond of, but I mean, if you can get one of the waves, it's so good and it's so perfect. It's kind of just one of those things that you have to get stuck into. So Noosa Heads is around a 2-hour drive north of Brisbane. Driving around Noosa, it can be a nightmare to park, especially if it's pumping. You basically can't park at the national park entrance unless it's like 4 or 5 a.m. and you're walking out there in the dark. Here's a bit of a cost breakdown as to what I think you would spend for a week in Noosa. So obviously you've got your camper rental, say a tank of fuel, because you don't need to drive that far, but if you're kind of going between your campsite, the points, the open beaches, you will use a bit of fuel. You know, cooking all of your own food, so let's say a grocery shop. Yeah, I think that's kind of a good all-round sort of cost expectation. But yeah, please use that just as a guide, because obviously you can spend way more and you can spend way less as well. Noosa is a stunning area, like regardless of the waves, like even if it's flat at the points, like it's well worth going to walk around the outskirts of the national park because it is so stunning. I mean, it's amazing when there's waves. Like, I remember the first time I ever went there and I was like, oh my God, I can't even believe this place is real. You know, the water's so clear, all these lush trees, and it just smells nice, and golden sand, there's like koalas in the trees sometimes. I was like, man, this place isn't even real. It can never be developed as well, which is really amazing, and it means it's going to be kept as it is today forever, hopefully, as well. So, you know, all the groms and stuff that are growing up there now, they're going to have that, and their kids are going to have it, and that's really special, knowing that we're not going to lose it. It's been designated as a World Surfing Reserve, even as it grew in popularity. Like, I think a lot of the locals and visiting surfers had the foresight to say, like, oh, we've got such a special resource here, let's try and protect it. Quite often see dolphins swimming through the lineup. You can see whales as well at the right time of year. But that does also mean there are sharks as well. I think the most common species up in Noosa are tiger sharks. So yeah, I think sightings are pretty uncommon, to be honest. I've never seen one, and I've spent a fair bit of time there. And yeah, kind of when you're surrounded by that many people, you're not really thinking about sharks, but it doesn't mean they're not there. You know, I know like the early surfers in Noosa were pretty worried about sharks when they were surfing it by themselves, but man, I'd take that risk as well if I could surf that by myself these days. So yeah, Noosa is one of the most beautiful and pristine places I've ever been to. The waves can be absolutely incredible. The points themselves are not the most consistent waves in the world. You know, you can get more waves on like the more exposed beaches, but it's not going to be as perfect. But when you get those cyclone swells and when those proper East Coast lows light up the Noosa National Park, I mean, there's nowhere else like it. There's nowhere else really that you're going to ride waves for that long or see that many people surfing at the same time in such a beautiful setting. It's a really amazing place. Yeah, as I said, it's crowded. That's kind of the only real big downside. Everyone wants a piece of that, so, and you know, who can blame them? So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this breakdown of one of the most famous surfing towns and point break setups in Australia, if not the world. Let me know of your experiences of surfing it. If you want a sick camper for your trip to this part of the world, check out the link down in the description. For now, thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next episode.